From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Hello everyone, welcome to OpenLine. Good topic tonight. We are talking about elder law, a chance for you to get advice on how to care for a loved one as they get older, or perhaps you yourself are getting older. What are some things you should do, some steps you should take? Many of us have a parent who may be getting older and we're concerned about the cost of a nursing home, or we wonder about setting up a will. These are things we can talk about tonight. Happy to have with us Tim Takis. Tim, thank you for being here once again.
Great, glad to be back.
Always good to be here. Always
definitely.
appreciate it when people call in with their individual stories.
Yeah.
But I like to ask, what have you seen in your office of late?
Well, one of the things I'm sitting here going, it's been a long day. You know, we were just talking before we went on. Is today is estate planning day at the elder law practice, and which means that we have a lot of our older clients, our clients that are coming in either for the first time or, you know, to come in and review their estate plans or sign documents or whatever. So usually Tuesdays are a real busy day for me. And then of course right after a holiday, you know, we started, it's kind of odd, we had a lot of phone calls today and people were calling in for, you know, I was thinking, well, did people blow themselves up or something and need to come in or whatever? But so a lot of, you know, so to answer your question, a lot of what we're seeing, and I've been seeing recently, is we're seeing older couples who aren't necessarily needing extended care or long-term care or nursing home care, but they're coming in and they're wanting to talk about their estate planning because they're starting to think about, you know, maybe the next or the last stages of their lives. You know, such as, all right, maybe I'm in good health now, but perhaps I'm not going to be in good health sometime. And do I need to look ahead, and what do I need to do now? Should I give my money or property away? You know, is that a good idea? You know, what can I expect if one of us, meaning one of my either I or my wife or my spouse goes into a nursing home? We had a lot of those questions, and then I've noticed that a lot, that we're getting a lot of those more on what we call our estate planning day.
Estate planning.
Estate planning,
if you had to define that, how do you define estate planning?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I had a gentleman and his wife that came in today, and he same situation, you know, married couple. They'd been married for 25 years, but he has 4 children by his previous marriage, and she has 2 children by her previous marriage, but they've been married for 25 years, and they wanted to make sure, you know, that at their deaths, that, you know, their respective children get half of the estate. Very normal thing. And so we were talking about, you know, the estate planning thing, and, you know, and the husband was going, and he's starting to get a little bit impaired memory-wise. And I said, well, look, I'm going to do your estate planning, and, you know, I told him what we charge, and he goes, well, you know, can you give me a list of things that I'm going to get? And I'm going, well, let me kind of explain how this works. Is that when we do estate planning, the documents are the end result. You know, the estate planning is looking at your circumstances, looking at what your money and property is, what are your goals with your estate, and then coming up with you know, a plan that might include certain documents in order to carry out that plan. You know, and he's wanting basically like the little menu that says, well, you know, for a will it's this, for a power of attorney that this, you know. And I sort of, you know, kind of teased him in a way, and I said, you know, when you go to the doctor and you tell the doctor, well, you know, doctor, I have a cough, and the doctor says, well, you got this. We need to do some things. Well, can you give me a list of the stuff, because I want to choose which one that I want? You know, and the doctor's going to say, well, get out of here. You know, because the doctor's idea is that, you know, you tell the doctor, you know, what concerns or issues that you have with your health, and together you arrive at a mutually satisfactory, you know, diagnosis and prognosis and treatment plan.
Right.
You know, but you know, if you're a doctor, you might say, well, you know, here's some options for your treatment plan. Let's talk about which ones are right for you. And that's kind of what we do with estate planning.
And so what's the number one thing you think people need? Would it be a will, or do a lot of people already have a will? Would it be some plan as far as I want to give money to so-and-so? Or
And what that gets into is it gets into what the particular issues are that like in this situation is, they were concerned, or at least the children were concerned about decision making because they had done a will, 4 years prior to that, but the lawyer that did the wills did not do anything else for them. So apparently they walked into this married couple, in their 80s, walked into the lawyer's office and said, well, we need 2 wills, and the lawyer goes, okay, here you go.
Right.
Instead of doing an estate plan, which would be, it's like, well, have you thought about decision making? What if one of you became disabled or incapacitated? We need to make sure that you have a mechanism for that. Do you need to set up a trust that where you have a backup trustee for yourself? Do you need to have a healthcare agent? Should it be your spouse or should it be somebody else? Since in this situation, there were, each spouse had children by the first marriage. Okay, so should your spouse be your healthcare agent or should be your child be your healthcare agent? And that's really the type of planning that we're talking about. Is who's going to make decisions for you if you become disabled or incapacitated?
And then the other plan that people want and that they worry about is how are they going to pay for these things later in life?
Right.
So that person, maybe they're talking about how they're going to distribute things after their death.
Right.
But also, how are you going to pay for something like a nursing home?
Sure. And it's the legal part, which is the decision making and whatever, and getting the estate planning and the how is the estate going to be distributed? Should I set assets aside in a trust because maybe I have a disabled spouse, or maybe a child who has a disability or incapacity. There's the financial planning, which is exactly what you're talking about. Is that okay? I'm 80 years old. Do I have a plan for my long-term care needs? Is it probably too late for long-term care insurance, but is there other options, that can provide for, do I need to save for that, or do I not have enough to save for it? Then you have the personal care needs, which all tends to drive all of that. Like in that one case, I'm 86 years old, and I have a history of Alzheimer's disease in my family, and I'm starting to develop symptoms. How am I going to take care of my wife? What can I expect for my personal care needs, today or in the future? So it all sort of gets integrated into the legal, financial, and the personal care needs.
And we've talked before about what it costs per month.
Right. And then you start looking at $7,000 to $8,000 a month for nursing home care. And do you have a spouse? And how are you going to protect your spouse? Should you give money or property away? Because that's always a big thing. Is that, well, if I don't have it, the nursing home isn't going to get it. But then I'll say, well, under most circumstances, if you give money or property away, then it means you can't get Medicaid to pay the nursing home for 5 years. So do you have enough money to cover that 5-year cost of care if, let's say, 2 or 3 months later you wind up in a nursing home, or or should you do something else?
Right.
Is it too late? So are you really looking at, maybe you're not going to get through a 5-year look-back period, so what options do you have there? And all of that makes it, more than just sort of a cookie-cutter approach of, well, here's your documents and here's your estate plan, now come back, when something else happens.
And I've asked you before, what's the number one mistake people make? And the number one mistake people make is they don't do anything.
They don't do anything.
They don't plan.
They don't plan. They don't think about, well, what if this happens? Think about, the likely scenarios is that, and if you're watching this program and you're 35 or 40 years old and, maybe, well, that doesn't concern me because I'm 40 years old and I'm thinking about my parents, but I might say to the 40-year-old, well, do you have a 12-year-old child, 10-year-old child? What happens if you ride down the road and you're killed in an automobile accident? Who's going to take care of your children? Have you provided for them? Do you have a guardian appointed? Do you have a trust in place in your estate plan that sets aside money for them? Do you have life insurance that covers their necessities? All those sorts of things. It's like, gee, well, maybe that's something I need to think about.
And I bet a lot of people don't.
A lot of people don't.
So that is interesting. So it's not just for the the moms and dads,
Right.
the elderly.
Right.
You could be 50, 40 years old and
Yeah,
be
exactly.
thinking about this.
Exactly. You may be thinking about it for your parents, maybe thinking about for your children, because maybe we do a lot of special needs work. In other words, where you have the 50-some-year-olds that come in and they have a 25-year-old special needs child, or even an 80-some-year-old that comes in and has a 60-year-old special needs child that's been living with them all their lives, and now it's like, okay, now what do we do? We thought, we had this, we had everything covered until we realized that we woke up one morning and we got old and realized that, okay, we can't expect, the younger son to take care of his older brother.
Well, this kind of sets the table.
Yeah.
So we want to encourage people to call in. There is the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587, with your situation, your story, whatever you want to share, and you can get some advice here. We'll take a break. Be back right after this.